the lonely, broken hearted.
Hey everyone, my name is Pablo Vivanco. I'm representing Barrio Nuevo here today. And today I'm here in the memory of Awi Nadir, in the memory of Junior Manon. I myself never got a chance to meet either of them, although I know their families and have felt their sorrow, much like the brother who was here earlier who had a friend of his die due to an altercation with police. So I know back in the day there was a saying, don't mourn, organize, and certainly I think that we should keep that always in mind, but I think we should also dignify those people that are no longer with us. So in that, I'm just going to ask for a brief moment of silence so that also the people who may be watching this in the media realize that part of the dimension of the things that we're speaking about today is also the number of people who have been killed by police. So I'll ask for a brief moment of silence. Thank you. On May 5th last year, Junior Manon took his last breath after an altercation with police up near York University. Now, I'm not sure if any of you have had a chance to read the Special Investigations Unit report, but I just want to read a couple of excerpts from it.
Fuck the SIU.
I'm going to get to that. The first officer responded by punching Mr. Manon several times on the right side of the head and the right chest area. Two of the civilian witnesses said that there are at least some of these blows involved striking Mr. Manon with a walkie-talkie. The second officer attempted to subdue Mr. Manon by wrapping his arm around his head and upper arm area. One of his arms may have been placed briefly around Mr. Manon's neck. Later on, concludes that during the struggle with the two subject officers after he fell or was taken to the ground, pressure was placed on his chest in a manner that could have caused it to compress and interfere with his breathing, a classic indicia of death caused by positional asphyxia. In particular, there is no unequivocal medical evidence of neck compression and no external injury to the neck, while there is some evidence of internal bleeding to the neck area. Now, the SIU concluded that the police were not responsible in Junior Manon's death. What does that sound like to you, though?
Bullshit! Murderers! Asesinos!
Asesinos! Asesinos!
Asesinos! Asesinos!
So I want to conclude, but I want to speak a little bit about the SIU, whoever mentioned, yes, that. The SIU was created in 1990 to dispel concerns about the police investigating police. But in 2008, the Ontario Ombudsman concluded that among the serious problems were endemic delays and lack of rigor in SIU investigations, a reluctance to insist on police cooperation, and an internal culture overly influenced by preponderance of ex-police officers amongst its staff. So, in fact, what this supposedly civilian police body is supposed to do, or was supposed to have taken, what the issue was supposed to have addressed, is the exact opposite. It's still police investigating police. So it should come as no surprise the fact that they look at the evidence and conclude that all these situations where police murder people, where they kill people, where people become seriously injured as a result of their altercations with police, they find them innocent. One of the recommendations in 2008 was also to amend legislation to make it an offense for police forces not to cooperate with the SIU, which was the exact thing that the SIU said that the reason why they couldn't charge any police officers during the G20, because they didn't cooperate with them. So in all this, we have to remember that the actions of police in the G20, which some of you may have experienced, and which I'm sure is something that is present in a lot of your minds right now, is cultivated by an atmosphere of impunity that they have been permitted to operate under. The SIU acts to whitewash their actions and insulates them from actual public scrutiny and responsibility. The SIU as it is cannot be repaired and is not willing to change. Their obvious disregard for the Ombuds report actually proves that. Some of you may want more, some of us may want more, and we may actually get there. But in the meantime, we need actual measures to disarm the tools that police have to continue to get away with abuses and, in certain areas, murder.
Yes.
The SIU is not a support for the public, it's a tool for the police. Disband it and create a real independent public body with the ability to investigate and press charges for police misconduct. But we won't get there unless we continue to organize, continue to overcome this sort of intimidation and fear. If the Egyptians and Palestinians and countless others can do it facing tanks, then we can do it also. Todo poder al pueblo.
Hi, my name's Phoenix. I'm a former prisoner. I've also been a sex worker for 13 years. However, my current situation puts me in a place of privilege to be able to be out here and expose myself, speak publicly on behalf of a woman named Brandy. So I'm going to read her speech today. She couldn't come today. So my name is Brandy. I'm an Ojibwe woman who lives in this area. I've lived in this neighborhood for 25 years. I wish I could speak at this rally today, but I'm afraid of the repercussions I would face if I did, because I've been a victim of police violence from this very division many times. As an Aboriginal woman, a sex worker, and a person who uses drugs, I've had way too many interactions with police, more than I'd prefer. I was homeless in this neighborhood for over 5 years. Being harassed once a night is a good night. Harassment is violence. In the last few years, I have been employed by a local agency, so I have had to work less on the streets, so my interactions with cops have become less. Still scared when I see them that they will stop me, CPIC me, a common occurrence.
Shame! Shame!
There are over 500 missing and murdered Aboriginal women in this country. Many of these women were sex workers like myself. These murders continue to go unsolved. We're seen as nobodies. Sometimes I feel like saying when the cops pull me over, my name is Jane Doe, because that's the tag they'll put on my toe as they sweep these murders under the rug. I know they want me to feel like a piece of shit, but I know who I am and I have my dignity. They can't steal that. They've tried. I hate doing sex work. But it's fast money and I have to do it because I need to survive, to eat, to live, to pay my bills, to feed my cat. I've been married. I own a business. I own cars. I'm a mother. I raised 5 children, sent 3 of them to university. They all have degrees. I'm very proud of my children. I have 6 granddaughters and 1 grandson. I've done a lot in life. I had a real bad tragedy happen in my life. In 1 minute, you'd be surprised how life can turn a 180. How easily you can end up on the streets. It was devastating. It was and still is. I never got past that day. Being on the streets, the trauma just continues. The violence just continues. It keeps happening. On the door of the police car, it says to serve and protect. Protect who?
The rich.
They choose who they want to protect. Aboriginal women are disproportionately overrepresented in our prison system. We are targeted, we are not protected, we do not feel safe. The message I want to give to the police today is we don't need to be abused or victimized by you. We already are abused and victimized enough. Maybe that's why some of us are working on the corner. We don't need to continue to work to feel even more threatened, and then you ask, why do some of us get high? You tell me. I'm a survivor. This is my neighborhood. You only work here.
Next speaker, Anna Woods.
Hi, everybody. That was a great last line. In fact, the police often don't live in Toronto. Most often they live outside of Toronto. And they do come into our neighborhoods and they cause a lot of chaos in our neighborhoods. I really appreciate people sharing their stories today. I was biking out today out College Street and got to College in Lansdowne and stopped for a moment at St. Clarence and Lansdowne or St. Clarence and College to honor a man who was killed by police in 2000, August 2000. His name was Otto Voss. And there was a long, long struggle to try to get justice for Otto Voss and for his son and for his partner. Coming up on May 21st is another anniversary, the death of a young Filipino man who was killed on May 21st. Jeffrey Riotica, sorry about that. Another anniversary coming up that the brother just mentioned. Many, many anniversaries. And it's really important for us to continue to keep these names alive. Wade Lawson, Faraz Suleiman, Sophia Cook, Albert Johnston, all the rest, Byron Dabasij, all the rest. We have to keep those names alive because when people die as a result of an altercation with the police, when they are killed by police officers, officers, their names are not even recorded as homicides in this city. Their names disappear. They are not accounted among the deaths at the end of the year when the Star does their annual piece on who's died in this city. Those names disappear, and we have to make sure that those names don't disappear. I just wanted to say a couple of things. Police violence looks like the deaths that we have all been talking about. It also looks like a lot of other things. In the case of women up at York University, the Toronto police officer telling women that if they wouldn't dress like sluts, they wouldn't be sexually assaulted and raped. That is violent. The neglect of Aboriginal women across this country, missing and murdered, the neglect, the refusal to investigate those crimes. Even when police have those crimes reported to them, missing women reporting to them, not taking those reports seriously. That is violence. There is other kinds of violence, not investigating properly the killings of trans women that are particularly horrific and violent, and letting those killings of sex workers and letting those deaths go untreated for years and years. That is violence. Tasering people to death. Don Whites is in the crowd, and he can tell you how many people have died as a result of being tasered in this country and in the United States. That is a kind of violence. The kind of neglect that visits on all sorts of communities, the money that gets poured into the display that we're seeing now, including this beautiful building that has been refurbished only to house 51 Division. The greatest construction projects going on that are happening in this city with tax dollars, with dollars that should go to services, as Gaetan was saying earlier. That is a kind of violence. So there is a lot of violence. The violence of police officers strolling through the halls of our schools, armed, in uniform. Their brothers and sisters harassing students on the way to school, searching knapsacks, accusing them of stealing, accusing them of being someone who looks like someone who might have been in the neighborhood at the time that something might have happened, and therefore we're going to take you in. That is violence, that kind of constant harassment. And the last thing I want to say is there are many, many, many people in this city who cannot even use the services, as bad as they are, of the Toronto Police, because they are undocumented. And so we have women whose abusive partners call the police, tell the police that they are here illegally. And those police officers, once they come into that information, turn those women, victims of violence, over to the Canada Border Services Agency, over to immigration. So that we have women in this city who have absolutely no protection from the violence of their abusers, from the violence of their workplaces, because they cannot even use these services, despite the fact that every person in Canada, resident in Canada, every woman has a right to equal protection under the law. They have the right to be able to use these services if they choose. And we currently have the Toronto Police acting in compliance with the Canada Border Services Agency over and over and over again to lead these women out of one violent situation and send them back to another, and that is an absolute shame. And we need to be against that. So I encourage you, one of the things that occurs to me, the longer I've been doing this, I've been working on police accountability, such as it is. It's got to be bad when even the SIU is frustrated, folks. Even the SIU is frustrated, and that's how bad it is. It occurs to me that some of the things in our communities that we have to start doing is stop calling them. When I went past where Otto Voss was killed, my daughter used to go to school there in grade 7 and 8, and they used to hang around in the little mall that's on the corner of Lansdowne and College. And the people in that store were calling the police all the time on the kids. Any little thing that would happen, they would call them. My son goes to high school, was going to high school. Anytime any little thing would happen, the police would be called into the high school. When we have some social services in this city, anytime there's a little bit of a fuss, they call the police to come in. We have got to stop doing that. They are not good at conflict resolution. They actually usually make conflicts worse. They are not good at social work. They don't receive that training. They receive far more training on weapons and using weapons than they do on how to talk to people. They are not good at any of this stuff. They certainly aren't good guidance counselors. I don't know how they do as football coaches, but maybe we'll leave that to Rob Ford. So why do we bring them into these situations? Why do we justify an almost $1 billion police budget per year by giving them more and more to do? We have to stop that. We have to cut back how police are involved in our lives. We have to stop calling them and learn how to solve these problems ourselves. We have to learn how to support each other and deal with whatever violence or issues come up in our own communities. We need to learn to do that and be self-sufficient, because these men and women do not know how to do it. It ends up with people getting killed when they don't need to be killed. It ends up with people being jailed. It ends up ruining their lives, meaning that they can't travel, they can't get citizenship, they are deported. We have to stop involving them until they get their act together. And the biggest threat to the police right now, folks, is their own arrogance, their own overconsumption, their own overspending, their own over-involvement and stretching themselves far beyond their talents and their abilities. That is what is going to bring down the police services, folks. They are in crisis across this country. They are in crisis across this country. Scandal after scandal after scandal. They are bringing themselves down. They have nothing to fear from us. You have a lot to fear from yourselves, and you better get your acts in gear, folks.
The elders in OCAP have taught a lot of us younger activists a lot of the lessons and experiences, and we're definitely grateful for that. Well, first of all, one thing I want to comment on from the beginning, and I feel it's my obligation to do so, is that today's rally against police brutality is being kept a peaceful one by OCAP, and I think that's an important thing. I think this is excellent. And at the same time, I know there's a lot of youth energy, and sometimes I might call it a childish militancy that kind of just wants to jump the gun and get to the fighting. And actually, I want to make it very clear that us in the Esplanade Community Group, our method of organizing is long-term class struggle community organizing, the patient organizing, of building a large movement. And I want to make it clear, I have an obligation to my community to make it clear that sometimes this kind of childish militancy, and though I understand it, and though I always want all political prisoners to be free, at the same time, this kind of activism that we've seen in the last bit in Toronto in particular, actually throws the movement back in our communities. It throws the movement back in our communities. The Esplanade community and neighborhoods all across the downtown east side in the last decades and even the last 100 years have been the target of police departments across this city. And that's intensified over the last few years now. As the economic crisis leads to growing unemployment, as austerity cuts cut our services, as our youth are prevented from ever advancing themselves in our communities, the cops are sent in to clean up the mess, to sweep it under the rug, to toss us in these prisons that they're building up. As the property values in the downtown core go up and high-profile investment comes in to build up condos and whatever else, the cops are sent in to clear the streets out of our communities. They target our youth. They target people of color. They target working people. And especially after the G20, the kind of arrogance has resulted in even harassing and assaulting some of our elders, even white elders in our community. This is what's happened over the last bit. Now, the Esplanade Community Group, one of the major issues we've organized around, and particularly among our youth, is police brutality. We've organized forums on the issue. We've run educationals, legal defense educationals, and done exposures whenever there's been cases of police brutality in our community. But more than that, we've also organized our own cop watch program in our neighborhood wherever we could to put our youth activists on the streets. Whenever we get word from our youth or our fellow residents that someone's getting harassed or brutalized by the cops, we try to go out there and keep watch on those cops in whatever capacity we can. We realize that there are no appeals to human rights or police complaint boards or the SIU, the Special Investigations Units, are going to bear no fruit or no justice for our communities, and these cops know that. We realize that the only way to protect our communities, to protect our interests, our safety, is to go and do it ourselves. Through our organized power. It's going to take. Look at the economic crisis, more and more people are waking up. You look into last year, more and more average Canadians are waking up to what the police represent in the society. They're not just people you call up when there's a robbery in your neighborhood or there's an arson. People are realizing that the G20 taught them that the police are serving the rich in our society. Down in the Esplanade, just down that street, 300 of us were arrested during the G20.
Bullshit.
Youth, activists, many of our own activists from the Esplanade were arrested, and residents whose only crime was coming home from work that evening. 300 people, the cops were sent to beat their skulls and toss us into the prisons. 1,100 people were arrested. Average people are waking up to this fact because capitalism is forcing them to do so. And one thing I want to make very clear is it's the role of us activists to go back into our communities, to go back among our class, to educate them and to build a mass movement. A small band of heroes, of adventurous band of heroes ain't going to change nothing in this world, but that same group of people with discipline and political education can go and provide leadership to their people, to our communities, and that's our task right now. All power to the people.
First thing I was going to talk about is the assault and the attack and I guess the war on youth that we've been experiencing in Toronto. No matter what poor community you're from, it seems like there's harassment for just being baggy clothed or having piercings in your face or just generally hanging out on the corner doing nothing wrong. Like, it seems like everywhere I go I get harassed, or anywhere anybody I hang out with gets harassed and beaten and threatened by the police just because of our age. It seems like just because of how old I am, I automatically have no political views, or I don't know what the law of the government is, or I don't know what the police are supposed to do, or what their law is, or whatever it may be is the reason they harass us, but I'm sick of it. I was personally attacked in Esplanade for using my own stairwell.
Shame!
I used the stairwell, I was trying to go down the stairs, I was beaten by police, throwing down the stairs. You know what I mean? That's what got me involved in this. If it wasn't for the Esplanade community group, I don't think that I'd ever get involved. We need more people, we need more cop watches, we need more people to stop calling the police on the kid that's hanging out in the corner because you say, yeah, he's making noise, but then he comes and gets beat by it. That could be your child next time. It could be your, you know what I mean? It could be your daughter that gets killed or raped in the fucking, the police. Got killed. You know what I mean? Look what happened in Jane and Finch. The kid did nothing wrong. The SIU said that it was a heart attack that got him, and they broke his neck. You know what I mean? It's just every time we turn around and we try and make a step forward, the police always try to push us 10 feet back. You need to worry. You need to start to realize that your youth are the targets. You know what I mean? Our activists are targets. High school kids shouldn't be going to school and search. High school kids should be going to school to learn. That's all I have to say.
Karen wants to say something. I think people should really listen to what she has to say.
Hi everyone, look on over to Division 40 or 51 and say, hi, we're here, we know what the hell you're doing. I lost my son in November 2007, shot by police in Kitchener. Since that day I've done a lot of research on why they do what they do. And I say they because they talk about us as them. Are we them? Are we... We're people. It doesn't matter what we look like. It doesn't matter about our age. It doesn't matter. We are citizens. We are people that should be protected, should be revered, are important. Don't minimize the sex workers. Don't minimize people. People are people. You have families, and I'm looking right at you. You have families. Would you want your families treated the same way that we've heard these stories here today?
Word up.
I don't think so. So think about that. Think about that when you go home to your families and think, you know, my son was shot through the heart. Think about it. Thanks for listening.
No police impunity. Justice for our communities. No police impunity. Justice for our communities. No police impunity.
This banner says a lot.
Raw force, baby, trade will only feed the pace. Raw force, baby, trade will only feed the pace.
We're gonna march to 52 if anyone wants to come.
Fuck yeah!
Let's go!
What's up, there? What's up, buddy?
No racist! No justice! No peace! Fuck the police! No justice! No peace! Fuck the police!
Too bad, so sad. Too bad. Too bad, so sad. Too bad. Too bad, so sad. Too bad. so sad. You've been had. You've been had. You've been had. You've been had. It's too fucking bad, motherfucker. So sad.